A Muslim scholar by the name of Yasir Qadi has implied that the Quran and Sunnah predicts, guess what, zombies.
It is a problem. Wallahi, it's a problem for any rational mind. What are you going to do with Ya'juj and Ma'juj?
That's right, you didn't mishear me. He said zombies. Zombies. Those scary looking half-dead creatures were alive but not alive. The ones from modern pop culture. Muslims love to say the Quran predicts science, but this is a new one. The Quran predicts zombies. The Quran predicts zombies. We had it in a book 1400 years ago. The Quran predicts zombies. What's next? Vampires? He makes it clear that he's quite embarrassed to say this, and that this is not his theory, but a scholarly friend of his. He actually shared this idea because he thinks it's better than any other idea out there. Can you believe that? Hi, I'm Abdullah Samir. You probably already know me. If you don't, I'm an ex-Muslim exploring issues of faith and apostasy. I left Islam 4 years ago, and lo and behold, Dhul Qarnayn was one of the biggest issues for me too.
And this is something that I have heard myself, some ulama say, that perhaps Ya'juj and Ma'juj are not on earth but under earth. That's why the satellites haven't discovered them. And this, again, I appreciate the salvaging, I really do. But how can human beings survive? No vegetation, no plants with the sun, no oxygen, food, drink, thousands of years. And according to these traditions, we're talking about gazillions of people. What is the answer to this conundrum of Ya'juj and Ma'juj? I will disappoint you by saying there is no clear-cut answer. But wallahi, to struggle with the truth and to admit the struggle is a safer position than to invent something that is far-fetched and then pretend that it is answering the problems.
So in this clip, Yasir Qadi admits that there is no solution to this. But to struggle with the truth, as he calls it, is better than making up a solution. He's saying it's okay to be in doubt rather than making up something that's not true. Watching this video makes me feel vindicated. To all of you out there who have been told that your doubts are just misguidance, that you need to stop thinking, that you're thinking too much, that you need to quiet your doubts and just believe. This is for you guys. This is for all of you young men and young women where we're told that you're just thinking too much. Well, look, the scholars themselves are acknowledging these problems now loud and clear. Because of the activism we're doing, these ideas are gaining traction and they can no longer ignore them. So they're publicly admitting now, if you have doubts, don't bury them. Investigate them. Your mind is trying to tell you that something isn't adding up, that reality is not congruent. Your mind wants reality to make sense, to click in, to fit together, and something is out of place. If it is, you need to look into it. Here's Yasir Qadi again.
And the issue of Ya'juj and Ma'juj is actually, for our modern times, I would say, one of the most, if not the most problematic of the signs of Judgment Day. And it has caused many of our youth to question, to doubt. I myself have met people that have actually left Islam because of these types of tales.
And I also had a big problem with the story of Dhul Qarnayn, this tribe of how Dhul Qarnayn, he trapped this tribe of people, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog, behind a giant gate built of copper and iron. And I was wondering, where is this place? How come we can't find it? We have Google Earth and all that, and how come we can't find it? So that was another doubt. And I believe, left Islam for one day. But then I decided, you know what? I'm going to put my doubts aside. I'm Muslim. I want to go to Jannah. I want to believe in Allah. And I became Muslim for 1 more year.
And we have to be honest and frank and not pretend as if this doesn't exist. Perhaps some of you are not accustomed to hearing people speak like this, but my philosophy is different. We are dealing with a crisis of people leaving our faith, our own children, our own young men and women. And of the reasons why is that we are not answering some of these issues that they bring, and we dismiss them. And I myself have discussed many of these issues with these types of people, and one of them, not the only one, but one of them is Ya'juj and Ma'juj.
You know, a false religion would have issues like this. A false religion would have problems in it that would cause people to leave it. When you watch the following clips, keep in mind the very obvious possibility, the very obvious conclusion that he's not mentioning, that Islamic scholars never mention, that the whole thing is a myth and made up. They'll never admit that. They'll never even admit the possibility. Instead, they will jump through hoops, fanciful hoops, in order to make sense out of a story that doesn't make sense. Occam's razor says, take the possibility with the least assumptions. Look for the most straightforward explanation. That's the most likely one.
So we have to be very clear and frank and think critically even as we look at our tradition. So let us begin from the beginning. Who are Ya'juj and Ma'juj? And what does the Quran and Sunnah say about them? The issue of Ya'juj and Ma'juj is something that doesn't just occur in the hadith. It is explicit in the Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Ya'juj and Ma'juj in the Quran. Therefore, it is pretty clear that this is not something that you can say, oh, it's only found in one hadith. No, it is found in many a hadith, but even more importantly, it is found in the Quran itself.
So it's mentioned explicitly in the Quran and can't be explained away. This is what I find with certain apologists. If something is in a hadith, they can excuse it, they can wave it away, they can say, oh, it's just a hadith, there's some probability of doubt. But if it's in the Quran, we are stuck with it. We can't weasel out of it. It has to be true. So they have to find a way to make sense out of it. I have to say, this is something that Yasir Qadhi deserves praise for. The fact that he's trying to think critically. I believe his critical thinking will eventually lead him to the right conclusion one day, that Islam is false, that these stories are just made up. But if he did find that out, if he did come to that conclusion, would he even tell us? There would be no benefit to him to tell anybody. He'd probably just keep on doing his imam thing. There's actually nothing for him to gain by publicly leaving Islam. So why not just stay as a Muslim scholar? Keep earning your income, keep doing your speaking gigs, keep doing your Umrah tours. Why not? He's so deep into Islam that there's no possibility for him to leave now without destroying his entire life and reputation. So we have to ask ourselves, even if he left Islam, would he tell us? So I'm skipping forward to the zombie explanation. If you want to watch the full video, it's there. I'll add a link in the description.
To be brutally honest, standard medieval interpretation of Ya'juj and Ma'juj is the following. This is what you find in Ibn Kathir. You find it in the tafsir literature of As-Samarqandi and of Al-Tha'labi. And basically, this is the mainstream interpretation for our classical and middle ages of Islam. Ever since the beginning of writing tafsir, let's say 300-400 Hijrah, up until pre-modernity, up until going to CE 1800s or whatnot. If you look at any book of tafsir, any book of history, the notion was the following. Ya'juj and Ma'juj are a bizarre, exotic tribe in the nether regions of the world that have been trapped by Dhul Qarnayn thousands of years ago, and they're still trapped to this day. And quite a few medieval historians have reported that I know of a friend of mine who traveled to the end of the world and he saw with his own eyes the wall of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. We find this in respectable Islamic books. The notion that Ya'juj and Ma'juj are a living tribe, blocked to this day behind the wall that was built 4,000, 5,000 years ago. That wall miraculously is still there. People can see on the one side, and on the other side you have these savages that Allah knows how they're eating, drinking, replicating, whatnot, and they're still there for eons and eons and eons. This is the standard interpretation of our scholars of the tradition, not of the Quran and Sunnah. You understand what I'm going to get at, okay? We don't blame them. In their time frame, the world was unexplored. In their time frame, nobody traveled the world.
So the standard medieval interpretation has problems. Why did Allah misguide all of these scholars? How is it that everybody got it wrong until now? What would you think if there was a book that was from God and everybody that read the book came to the incorrect conclusion for over 1,000 years? What would you think? You'd start to wonder, is this book truly from God? How is it that everybody is missing the obvious conclusion staring them in the faces?
So it's not surprising that our medieval scholars believe this type of stuff. Now, obviously, dare I say, anybody who knows science and geography and modern civilization, you cannot believe that there is a tribe for 4,000 years trapped behind a wall. I mean, if you believe this, that's your position. I cannot believe it. I find this very difficult to believe. So this has led people to do multiple things. The first interpretation, which is the standard interpretation of medieval Islam, is that, okay, maybe there are places in the world that are undiscovered. Maybe there is a race of people locked up behind the Caucasus Mountains or in Mongolia or whatever, and they're still over there. And Greenland, Greenland, interesting. How would Dhul Qarnayn get to Greenland? Because he's traveling. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He didn't go on a ship, he walked on a road. So that kind of, it's not the Bermuda Triangle, no. But many Muslims still believe this. I'd have nothing to say to this. If you believe it, I have nothing to say. I don't believe it, is all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to dismiss any person's belief, and this is the belief of medieval scholars. If you still believe that there's a big wall that is lasting for thousands of years, and by the way, no human structure is that fortified for 4,000 or 5,000 years that nothing happens to it. Even the Great Wall of China needs to be built up or whatnot. I mean, it doesn't work that way. But anyway, if you believe, and anyway, so this is, what can I say? If you believe it, you believe it. I am somebody who, what can I say? My mind doesn't believe this.
I don't have anything to add to what he said, but now we're going to come to the gold. We're getting to the point where he predicts zombies in the Quran and Sunnah. One of his scholarly friends is the guy that came up with this theory and refuses to be named because it's so embarrassing. Yasir Qadhi himself is embarrassed to mention it, but he decides to take the fall so that this idea can come out. Why does he want this idea to come out? Because he thinks this is the best idea so far.
There is another interpretation which I hesitate to even verbalize. And I will tell you honestly, this is not mine. I will honestly tell you, this is something that I am involved in many discussions of this nature with many people and whatnot. And one of my scholarly friends in a private conversation, so he will not allow me to mention his name. But I am telling you something that don't believe it's coming from me. Okay? You guys ready? Ready? Okay. Don't ascribe this to me, please. Who is it not from? Good. No, from my friend it is from him. Not from Don't do a double negative on me. So we were talking with a group of ulama, a group of students of knowledge, whatnot, call them whatever you will, and we're talking about this problematizing. It is a problem. Wallahi, it's a problem for any rational mind. What are you going to do with Ya'juj and Ma'juj? It's not an easy thing to come around. And even he was hesitant, but he brought it up. He said, let's look at these traditions again. We see that first and foremost, Ya'juj and Ma'juj seem to be human but not human. You see where this is heading. And they seem to be a race of people that cannot be fought. And they seem to be doing things that are bizarre, drinking up all of this water. That's not, humans can't do that. Mentally, they don't seem to be 100% there when they think they can kill the people of the heavens. This isn't normal. This isn't rational. The regular human beings alive, the followers of Isa, are so terrified of this group that they don't even want to see them. They're fleeing away from them. They will not fight them. The hadith mentions they will not be able to be fought. لا يدان أحد من قتالهم. And he mentions, if you look at the popular imagination of our times, you find a genre of literature and horror movies.
Zombies.
You see where this is heading.
Zombies, yes, I see.
And he mentions the word.
The Quran predicts zombies. Zombies.
And my jaw just dropped and I laughed. I said, are you serious? He goes, hear me out. Don't call them that word.
Don't call them zombies.
For those who don't know the word, maybe the youngers can tell them later on. Don't call them that word.
Zombies.
But the concept. What if we're talking about chemical warfare, we're talking about Dajjal, we're talking about the bird falling down, things are happening, weapons being unleashed, weapons beyond our understanding. What if the concept is there that these groups of people are human but not quite human? And they're doing all of these things, and everything just started clicking in my head. Check, 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 check. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. You will never find me saying this in a lecture, and here I am in a lecture saying it. But in any case, Allahu A'lam, frankly, it makes more sense than believing that 1 billion people are somewhere in Timbuktu or Zimbabwe or some faraway land. It makes more sense to me. Because Allahu A'lam at the end of time, also, ayas, the key point, they shall die the death of one man. How will they get gotten rid of? Allah will send a disease, some type of antivirus, some type of vaccine. I'm just saying what my friend said. Because the hadith mentions this explicitly, does it not? Allah will send something that will get them in the neck, and they will die the death of one person. So when my friend kept on going over all of these points, my laughter turned to a serious contemplation. And I said, but how do we tell the public this? Then I said, I'll just project it onto my friend, which it is true, it is coming from him, and I'll take myself out the picture so that as you laugh at my friend, but the laughter will slowly turn to contemplation, and deep down inside you'll realize this makes a lot more sense than anything else out there. So we conclude by stating that Ya'juj and Ma'juj are a reality. We believe in them because the Quran mentions it.
Oh, this is too funny. Are they even listening to themselves now? Like, Yasir Qadhi, do you hear what you're saying? You're saying a modern genre of horror films has the most likely possibility of what the Quran is talking about? Do you hear yourself? Like, are you listening to how silly this sounds? Like, come on. This isn't even funny anymore. This is going too far. The zombies are coming. We called it 1400 years ago. The zombies are coming. What does that say about the level of desperation of these scholars to save their religion? What does it say about the religion itself? I actually don't have anything else to say. I think he's said enough for both of us. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming, and I have some interesting other response videos that you might enjoy watching. I've responded to Noman Ali Khan, Muhammad Hijab, other Yasir Qadhi videos. Do check them out. Thanks for watching. This is Abdullah Samir signing out. Until next time, see you with the zombies.